Welcome to Breadcrumbs. This is the prophetic journal of a girl who's more than happy to eat the crumbs off the master's table. If you're like me, then listen and be encouraged that even in the whispers and mere shadows, our God still speaks, and He has a lot to say. I guess there's a first for everything, and last night was definitely a first of sorts. Such a strange night. When I went to bed, the moment I shut my eyes to try and settle into sleep, something was just not right. I felt evil everywhere. It was in the room, it was behind my eyelids. It had a particular agenda too that became pretty clear. Without my consent, I was bombarded with memories of my grandparents' house on my mom's side, and every memory that ran through my mind felt oily, unsafe, dirty. My rational mind knew that something was not adding up because I know, in reality, I loved my grandparents. They were a safe place. But here I was being shown a kind of a lurking evil underneath. I was so undone. One of the feelings I did not expect to feel was ashamed. My mom isn't here anymore, but she loved her parents. And last night I was thinking, how could I think these things about my own grandparents? About these people that my mom loved, that I loved? I knew there was something of the enemy in all of it because only the enemy can make you feel shame like that. So I began to pray, desperately, because I couldn't get it to stop. I asked Jesus, wash it, wash it, wash it. And suddenly He took me into a strange vision of being pulled into my own DNA. I could see myself being pulled into my veins, my arteries and capillaries, into the deepest parts of what makes me me. And suddenly I knew this was about my family line. It was about the blood that came from my mother's side of the family. Here's a little more context. I am 3 parts Irish to 1 part Scottish. My dad had a Scottish father and an Irish mother, while my mom had 2 parents of British and Irish descent. And so you could say I'm more Irish than Scottish, and yet my siblings and I have always made much more of our Scottish heritage. I'm not entirely sure why that is. Possibly because my dad celebrates his Scottish heritage far more than my mom celebrates her Irish heritage. But also, I think we pull on our Scottish heritage to explain the warrior spirit we all have, our stubbornness, our strength. We all identify as Gimli in Lord of the Rings. As many of you know, when you begin to walk in the prophetic, things that you previously were ignorant of become more clear. You become aware that where you come from matters. You become aware that every family has its demons. They like to follow along family lines. Right away, I became aware of the Freemasonry that came through very overtly from my dad's Scottish father. He was a card-carrying Freemason. We'll never know how high-ranking he was because he died before I was even born. My dad has dreamed of red-haired giants. They weren't friendly. And my brother and I, we did the work of handing over that part of our bloodline in prayer, in warfare. But we forgot about our Irish roots altogether. We ignored my mom's side. I think last night, the Lord didn't give me a choice. He reminded me that there was some unfinished business that needed to be attended to, and it started with those memories of my grandparents. He set off a warning bell. It was a rough start, but He took the reins and He actually steered it very beautifully from there. I entered into a dream. I was up on a little stage with a small group of women. I don't know who any of them were. And we were being directed into a kind of dance, a traditional Irish dance. We were each given a square of white linen to place over our heads. One side of the linen was covered in writing. I do not know what the writing said. It was the writing side that we were to place on top of our heads. I remember this detail. Of all the women, I'm the only one who took the linen and dipped it in water first. Once I did that and placed it back on my head, it became a kind of hat that adhered more closely to my skull. The man who was teaching us this dance is a man I know in the natural to be an Irish pastor. Interestingly, most of my life I had mistaken him for Scottish because that's where he planted his church. That piece is significant given what I already mentioned, which is that we have always mistakenly put too much emphasis on the Scottish parts of us, forgetting the Irish side altogether. Later when I woke, I knew that we were being led through an Irish blessing. That's what I heard. Irish blessing. I think most of us know one of the more popular traditional Irish blessings. It goes like this. May the road rise up to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun always shine warm upon your face, and the rain fall softly on your fields. And may God hold you in the palm of his hand. The wind always at my back brought to mind the very recent vision of being a wind that was rushing across the green field of grass towards Jesus as he called us to battle. The wind brings to mind the Holy Spirit. The sun upon my face brings to mind S-O-N, my Jesus. And as you've heard, he has already spoken to me of how I am cupped in the palm of his hand. This blessing was very significant to me, and I'm grateful that I dreamed of it. More than ever, it feels like my very own. It also felt like a washing of sorts over the sins of my fathers and mothers before me, whatever they may be. I may never know. This blessing felt like a gift. And he asked me to dance that blessing onto my family line. The next thing I saw was 8 sturdy cinder block posts that I knew represented the foundations of what would be a new building. I heard cairns. That is a word straight from the British Isles. It means little one, and yet what I was looking at was actually cairns, not bairns. And so I knew he wanted me to take meaning from both of those words. Cairns are pillars. They are the mounds of stones that men would build as memorials. We read of the patriarchs building these piles of stone as a kind of altar and memorial to what God had done for them. You could say that they were the foundations of the new life they were going to build in that place. 8 cairns, 8 foundation pillars. 8 represents new beginning. It's also the number of children my mother had. 4 of us lived, 4 died, but we were a family of 8 children, 8 bairns. And here the Lord was showing me, from you I will make of you 8 pillars. I will make of you the foundation for a new thing in your family, from your lives and from your deaths and from everything in between. I will make of you 8 children the foundation of a new thing for your family. Then he showed me what I know to be the green hills of Ireland. And he said, welcome to the promised land. And I knew it was about inheritance. I can barely get this out. I'm so moved by it. I have really good parents. They came from a lot of brokenness, and Jesus wanted me to know he was washing it all, redeeming it all, building a new thing from the loss and the brokenness. I can't wait to see what he's building. I want to encourage you all to pray over your families. Ask the Lord to show you what still needs washing, and then let him wash it so he can build fresh new foundations for something magnificent. If you want to interact with any of these episodes, if the Lord has spoken to you about similar things, then I really want to hear about it. This podcast has an Instagram account over at Mildly Prophetic. I'll put that in the show notes. If you hop over there, you can share the things you've seen and heard. You can ask me questions. Basically, you can add your breadcrumbs to mine. And if we gather them all up, then what a feast it'll be.